Hello everyone. On today's video we're going to be installing a mechanical speedometer converter. I got it from Jegs, and I cannot get my speedometer to work correctly out of my transmission. I don't know, there's something broken inside the transmission, I guess. It's not allowing it to drive the speedometer cable. So I wanted to keep the stock speedometer intact and all the other gauges in the car. I don't like the aftermarket gauges too much in my cars. So I found this at Jegs. It's kind of pricey. It's about, I think it was about 300 bucks. But the nice thing about it is it's got an end on it where you screw your factory speedometer cable into it. The other end connects out and goes out to an antenna that picks up a GPS signal for your speed, converts it to mechanical, and runs it out into your stock speedometer. So in theory, you keep your stock speedometer, but you don't have to worry about the problems with hooking to the transmission. So anyway, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to put this box in, try to get it hooked up. It's pretty simple. It looks like wiring. You know, you have a positive and a ground, and then they have another wire that I think I'm going to hook up. It is basically it's constant power. It's kind of like your radio. You have constant power going to it so you don't lose your memory and everything. It's the same way with this box. They say if you don't hook that wire up, it'll still work just fine. It'll just take a little bit for it to connect to the satellite. So you might start up and start going down the road, you know, a ways before the speedometer actually starts working. If you hook this wire up, it always stays connected to the satellite. So as soon as you start up and start moving, the speedometer works. They say it doesn't use any more power than your radio does, keeping its memory, and that, you know, it'd take quite a while for the battery to go dead. So I'm going to go ahead and hook it up for now anyway. If it gets to be a problem down the road, I might disconnect it. But so that's basically it. You got positive and a ground, that wire, and then your antenna, and then hook it into the speedometer cable. So it's pretty easy to hook up, it looks like. So let's get started here. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to try to figure out roughly where you want to put the box. Now for me, I think I'm going to put it in the center console right in this area right here. And I've got this rubber grommet where well, that's showing up down in there. You can see a rubber grommet right here. Where my shifter cable for my automatic transmission shifter went through to go down to the transmission. Okay, so I want to mount my box somewhere back in here where the speedometer cable will come back to it, and then I'm going to run my wires back through the center of the console back to the center storage compartment behind the seats, where I'm going to mount an aftermarket fuse box that I bought, and I'm going to run my wires into that. The first thing I need to do is jack the car up, get my speedometer cable disconnected from the transmission, and then route it up through this hole and see how far back here it's going to come, because right now it comes back probably back in here somewhere in the consoles, back where it connects to the transmission. So I'm hoping it won't be too long that I can't make it work and come back, you know, back here where the box will sit somewhere in here. So we'll just have to see. So, okay, I've got the speedometer cable pulled up here into the center console here. I'm gonna hook it up to that box. Kind of hard to do one-handed, but I'm just gonna okay. I think I want the box to sit right about like that. I might have to tilt it just a little bit like that so it's not in a bind. But I think that will miss that. Now I just got to make sure that my you can see on the bottom of my center console plate I've got an ashtray and a cigarette lighter, so I just got to make sure that it'll clear that. Yeah, that'll fit in there just perfect. Okay, so we'll get that bolted down, and then the next thing I want to do, I'm just going to use some self-drilling screws and just screw it right down into that into these plates here. Okay, so I went ahead and mounted the GPS antenna up here on top of the dash. I ran the wire down into the console here to that gold connection there. These are the 3 wires I need. The red goes to ignition, 12 volt positive, the black goes to ground, and the red black wire goes to constant power. Now according to the instructions, it says that hot start red black only draws 0.2 milliamps of power, so that's pretty low. That's I mean, that's about like what your radio does, or even less, I think. So anyway, when you mount the GPS antenna, you want to make sure that there's no metal between the top of this and the satellites. You can have glass or thin plastic or something, but no metal. It says it won't send the signal through that. So that's why I put mine up on the dash. I don't think it'll hurt anything up there, and it's kind of blends in with the black dash. So the other thing this thing has, it's got this little potentiometer here, and it's made where you could mount it somewhere if you wanted the button to stick out. I'm just going to leave it in the console for now, because what that's for is, once you get it all set up and drive it, if you find that it's not reading exactly right, say you know, you check GPS on your phone and you're doing 60 and this reads 55, you can adjust it with this potentiometer, turning it right or left, clockwise or counterclockwise, and adjust it in. And then once you do that, it's set. So there's no need to have this button exposed all the time. And I could just see where if you got it exposed, it's going to get bumped, or somebody's going to push it and change your speedometer setting and not realize it. So I believe when you have it powered up, you have to push it in for so long and then turn it to change your setting. So it's not like you can just bump it and turn it and it'll change it, I don't believe. So but anyway, I don't need it exposed, so I'm just going to leave everything open here for now. And what I might do is shove it out the bottom of the console or something like that. You can see I got it sticking out the bottom of the console. And in case I do need to set it, if I don't, then I'll just push it back up in there out of the way. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. So anyway, I've got that mounted. I bolted it down with some self-drilling screws. It's nice and solid. Cable's not kinked or anything going out. So we should be good to go on that, other than just hooking up the power. Okay, this is the fuse block I was telling you about that I purchased. I bought it on eBay. I'm not going to put a link because there's like a million of these on there. They have some where these are in a single row. It's a long, thin strip. This has 12 circuits, and it's compact, and I wanted that so it'd fit inside that little storage compartment. But you can get all different kinds. The main reason I bought this one, and I think it was around 20 bucks I paid for this, or 25, I can't remember now. Look at that, I'm sweating all over it. It's like 100 degrees in this garage today. But anyway, the main reason why I bought it was, it not only has the circuits for the fuses, your hot line comes in here from your battery to power those, it also has a place to hook up your grounds. You put your ground wire here back to the battery, and you can ground right into here, so you have a good positive ground going back directly to the battery too. And then they have these lights here. When it lights up red, that means you have a blown fuse. So it's really nice. You can just look in there, and if it's lit up red, you know that fuse is blown. If it's not, then you know the fuse is still good if you're troubleshooting your car for something. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell just looking at a fuse if it's blown or not. So kind of gives you a warning for that. So I kind of like that. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out exactly how I'm going to mount this in that center compartment in the back, and then we'll get back to you. My GPS speedometer control, I ran it all through this box here. So it's got the blade type fuses in here. If everything's brand new wire on everything I ran in, so I don't have to worry about overloading existing circuits or anything like that, or causing, you know, old brittle wire to start shorting out because it's carrying a heavier load. So that's something to keep in mind when you're doing your car. You want to make sure your wiring and the rest of the car is up to snuff to what you're putting in there, so you don't overload it and have a wire melt and burn your car up. The last thing you want is a fire in a plastic car, right? Okay, so I got the speedometer all put in and hooked up and everything, and I took out for a little test drive. And one thing I noticed, it doesn't really start moving until I get above about 20 miles an hour, and then it works just fine. I checked it against the GPS on my phone. It's reading accurately, so I'm good to go. I'm very happy with it. I had a little problem when I first put it in. It wouldn't work, and I thought, what the heck? And so I opened up the console and I checked, and the output on it wasn't spinning. I stuck an old short speedometer cable in there, and I could take my fingers and spin it and get it spinning. But if I just barely touched the speedometer cable, it would quit spinning. It had no power. And so I was gonna wait till Monday morning. This was on Saturday, and I was gonna call Jags and see what I need to do about returning it. And I thought, well, I'm just gonna double check my wiring one more time. And you have a hot wire that goes to positive 12 volt that keeps the unit energized enough to keep it from losing the signal. If you don't have to hook that wire up, but if you don't, when you first start the car up, you have to drive it for a couple minutes before it'll pick up on the satellites and start reading. It only draws like 0.2 milliamps. I mean, it doesn't draw any power, so it's not going to drain your battery unless you let the car sit for an extended period of time, just like your radio. So I checked it. It was hooked up correctly. And so I went to check my power wire that's connected to ignition wire. And I checked the ignition wire when I first hooked it up, but I did it with a test light and I didn't check the actual voltage output. So I've got a test light that'll check not only for power, but it'll tell you what voltage it's putting out. And that ignition wire I hooked into was only putting out 9 volts. So I found a good ignition wire that puts out 12 volts, hooked it up, now it works. So when you're hooking this stuff up, make sure, even though you're showing you're getting power to a wire, you want to have something to test the amount of voltage it's putting out, because if it's not putting out the right amount of voltage, whatever you hook up to, it's not going to work correctly. So that's just something to keep in mind. So anyway, I'm really happy it's working great now. It's sticking a little bit. Like I say, when I first take off, it seems like I get up to about 15 miles an hour, and then it'll pop up and start reading. So I'm going to check one more thing on that, on my cable, make sure there's no kinks or anything that could be causing it to bind up a little bit starting out. I tried to run the cable as straight as possible and the biggest bend I could have in it so it wouldn't kink. But I'm thinking maybe right where it comes up through the transmission hump, that maybe I could maybe straighten that out a little bit and take some of that kink out and see if I can get rid of that. So if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like and subscribe and share them with your friends, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a great day.